Werewolf Month on Two Guys and a Chainsaw has been powered by Manscaped, the leaders in taming the wilds below the belt. With their latest arsenal, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, equipped with its fearsomely effective skin-safe technology, you get two blades, one for a light trim and another for when you want to go bare, like a full moon night. Its dual LED headlights cut through the shadows, making sure you trim with the precision of a silver bullet. And it comes in a compact case that you can take everywhere, because you never know when you'll need to spruce up your fur before a midnight prowl. And it's not just a trimmer, it's your ultimate grooming ally, ensuring you look human even when the beast within is crawling to get out. Use the promo code CHAINSAW to snatch 20% off plus free shipping. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code CHAINSAW. Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
Well, here we go, wrapping up Werewolf Month, sponsored by Manscaped.
Thank you, Manscaped.
It was actually recently that I realized that our month would go on for 5 weeks instead of 4. So we had done our 4 episodes. Then we had some room to take a request. I believe on Facebook, one of our listeners recommended we check out this 2015 British film called Howl. I'd never heard of it, and I thought, oh, well, let's give it a try. But yeah, had never heard of it before, but it is directed by Paul Hyett, who did makeup effects on Dog Soldiers, and worked closely with the director there. So I guess he decided eventually he needed to make his own werewolf movie, and he did the makeup effects for this one as well. So how about you, Craig?
No, I had never seen it before. I'm kind of surprised. I'm not sure why. You know, the cover art is interesting enough, and it's pretty good. Like, I put on a lot of movies and turn them off in the first 5 minutes. Like, no, I can already tell this is going to be bad. I wouldn't have turned this one off. It's interesting. It looks good. But no, I didn't know anything about it. So you already mentioned the director was involved in Dog Soldiers. He also did the makeup for The Descent, and the lead actress from The Descent is the female lead in this movie. Like, there's all kinds of connections, like these
crossover.
Yeah. Which I didn't know until, I did some research or whatever, but it was interesting. I'm always interested to see how these things are connected, because it is an industry and people's paths cross, and when you find people that you like working with, you find ways to work with them again, and this is an interesting example of that. And the stuff that I was reading about it, like reviews were like, well, it's pretty good for low budget. Well, I mean, I don't know how low budget it was, but it didn't feel cheap. I thought it was pretty good.
I wouldn't have looked at this movie and said, oh, this is definitely a low budget film. But nowadays, a low budget can get you pretty far. I mean, a low budget back in the day, you get like cheap looking effects. It's kind of garbage. Nobody could afford CGI if they wanted to do something fancy. Nowadays, I can practically do passable CGI on my laptop.
True. True.
The standards, and with video cameras being the primary way that people film nowadays, a lot of the original expense of a film that would go into just the film stock itself is gone. So, you can spend that money on other things. And so as long as you're not trying to hire big name actors and use far-flung locations, I suppose you can get pretty far, even in 2015, I think, with a quote-unquote low budget. So,
well, yeah, and this movie's smart. Like, it's obviously shot on sets, I would guess, and the sets are small and very minimal. The outdoor shots, I couldn't tell what was going on. I loved the look of it because it looked very like spooky Halloween, like dark forest on a with a full moon, making kind of that eerie light and atmosphere. I couldn't tell how much of that was set or if it was near the end when they're running through the forest. I felt there was a lot of day for night.
There surely was, yeah.
But I couldn't tell. It could have been like a matte painting for all I could tell. But I liked the look of it. But I can see where they, saved a little bit here and there.
Yeah, you're right. Like the exterior seemed kind of I don't want to say fake in a disparaging way, but they just seemed, like you said, otherworldly and unreal, which it worked for the movie. Having this sort of unreal atmosphere works, I think, for the movie because it's all about isolation.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like these people on this road. It almost doesn't work any other way because ultimately the movie's about this very short train car that is, traveling the red eye in England and ends up stranded out in the middle of their route. And immediately I was thinking, okay, like, they can't be that stranded, like this is like a regular, I've been to England,
Yeah.
I've been to London. You travel through the countryside. Maybe there's nothing else there, but you're in constant communication. There are other trains that are eventually going to come down that line. Maybe not at 1 a.m., but who knows, I just thought they can't be that isolated. So I think maybe visually it helped to just say, you know what, this is kind of an unreal situation. Maybe in a way they're in another world, not literally, but that's just what it feels like. Because then you've got to like sort out, does this happen all the time? If there are werewolves out here in the woods, like, are they regularly attacking train cars?
No, I think it's coincidence. I don't think that those werewolves threw a deer in front of the train to sabotage it.
Right.
I think the train just happened. And they do say at some point, we can't be more than a couple of miles from the train station.
Right.
And they get out and start to walk, but there are werewolves, so they have to go back to the train. but yeah, a couple of miles is isolated. Like if you're in the woods,
True. True.
But I don't know. I guess we've kind of gotten ahead of ourselves, but that's what's this movie is. It's werewolves on a train. Immediately when I saw that we were following this guy, Joe, who works for the train company, and I don't know, I feel like he's supposed to be kind of what is his problem? Why is he so, like, downtrodden? I don't get it.
He's kind of a loser, honestly. He feels like I don't know what's going on in that guy's head. I was actually compelled by it. I thought, okay, well, I can see where this character arc is going,
Well, right. but he's a good-looking guy, and I just don't buy that everybody is picking on him and that women like only pity him and aren't interested. What's wrong with him? Like, he seems like a nice, young, handsome guy.
Yeah, but he's not uber friendly. He kind of has a weird kind of
awkward.
quietness about him, and not that that's bad, but it's just like, I don't know. When I saw it, I did feel like this guy's a little off somehow. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what his problem is. Maybe he's like depressed. Maybe he's just one of these guys who doesn't really get people and how to interact with them. But I bought this guy. I bought the character.
I did eventually because, as you already indicated, like, it's obvious that this is the hero arc. Like, oh, here's this loser who is gonna step up and become the hero of the movie. And he, spoiler alert, he does.
Sort of.
Sort of. But when I saw him, like, getting kind of bullied into taking this redeye, this last run or whatever after he just finished a full shift, and the supervisor's giving him crap about not enforcing like ticket fees and stuff, which whatever, who cares, it's boring. It's all just to establish that he's a loser, basically. When I saw that, and when I saw that it was going to be on a train and that they were introducing all of these different passengers, I'm like, oh, it's Train to Busan.
Yeah.
Except with werewolves.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's not that good.
Let's clarify that right away.
Yeah.
It's not Train Busan in its quality. Honestly, my ultimate feeling, let's just put it on the table, is this movie is okay. It's not bad. It's not great. I can't say I will watch it again, but I was just ticking the boxes. I'm like, oh, okay, loser guy is going to be stuck in a situation where he needs to prove himself and become the hero. All right, check. Douchebag passenger who ultimately is going to sacrifice other people to stay alive and will meet his end. Check. Cute elderly couple. Something sad and tragic is going to happen between the two of them. Check. Surely somebody's going to get bitten early on, and then they're going to be, turn in the middle just when everybody thinks everything is safe. Check. Girl who initially is not interested in the loser guy, suddenly, they have to come together and have some relationship. As I'm watching the movie and as I see these characters introduced, I just ticked those boxes off. I'm like, I know exactly where this is going. I really hope this movie proves me wrong and surprises me. And it doesn't at all. It's like carbon copy of maybe 6 or 7 other. Usually they're zombie movies, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's werewolves, interchanged for zombies in this very, very similar situation. So.
And that's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Two Guys and a Chainsaw.
It sounds like maybe you liked it a little more than I did, though.
I did. I actually enjoyed it. I didn't think it was great, but I actually, even though they were totally stock, I liked the characters. I liked the loser guy. I liked the girl who was not interested in him at all, and then because he gets brave or whatever, they kind of, I don't know, they kiss, I guess, at the end. The old folks were cute. I thought that the young guy hero, again, a total trope from Train to Busan 2, there's this one young guy who's going to be really heroic. I liked him, Billy, whatever his name was. It was very cliched, but it moved. I felt like it, I don't know. I mean, I've got a whole page and a half of notes.
Well, once it started going, it moved. I mean, like we said, he starts out and he's very schlubby and he's getting forced to take this midnight train. And he's also lost his promotion. He was going for supervisor and he didn't get that. So he's a little bitter about that. You could tell that when he gets on the train, he's sort of like, what is my life about? Like, you just see it in his face. And I liked the aspect that we got introduced to all of these other characters on the train quite quickly because he's going through and checking tickets.
But that part worried me because that's it. What I didn't consider was that it was at the beginning of the route. So there were so many people, and they were all so rude to him. And I guess, maybe that's true just of service, workers. I don't know. I hope I'm not rude like that to people. I try not to be, but whatever. He's just checking their tickets or whatever. But we're meeting a ton of people. And I was like, oh no, there's no way I'm going to be. Right. But then once he meets everybody, he goes back and I don't know. He locks himself in some room and he's sad and he falls asleep. And then he wakes up when the train screeches to a halt. It took me a second to realize that they were en route to the final destination. So they had already made a bunch of stops. Because it took me a second to figure out, why now are we only following 6 people? There were a ton of people on this train.
True.
It's because they all got off. This is the last stop. It took me forever. I couldn't figure out their names because they're listed in no particular order on IMDb. It's just random. But okay, so we've got...
Yeah, and I also just...
you just kind of had to categorize them, but I did. I finally figured it out. The douchey business guy's name is Adrian, and then there's also a kind of douchey business lady named Kate. She's blonde. I think she was the lead lady from The Descent.
Shauna McDonald, yep. Mm-hmm.
There's a guy named Matthew who wears glasses and is reading a book. There's an obnoxious teenager girl. I think she's supposed to be teenager, early 20s, named Nina. And she's so obnoxious that I didn't even care when she gets killed. She gets killed.
Oh, yeah. She was the first. Second.
I was glad.
That was so satisfying. She was
obnoxious. The cute young guy, Billy. The old couple, Jed and Jenny. And then the 2 rail workers, our main guy, Joe, and his love interest, I guess, Ellen. Their names don't really matter, but ultimately, that was a tight enough group and a diverse enough cast that I was into it. I was into the conflict. I was into it when Adrian the douche, had a private talk with Joe and was like, these werewolves are going to come back because there's werewolves. I'm going totally out of sequence. I apologize. But I appreciate the intrigue when he's like, these werewolves are going to, or this werewolf, they think there's only one at first. This werewolf's going to come back. We need to plan. There's some of us on here that don't stand a chance anyway. So to buy ourselves time, we may need to throw these people to the wolves. And it's not really conflict because Joe's immediate no, you're an asshole. We're not doing that. But I did appreciate the human intrigue of that stuff. I don't even remember how. So the train crashes And the driver goes out he says, we must have hit something. And he goes out to check and see, and he finds a deer, and he starts pulling it out, and he's immediately attacked by a werewolf. This movie does not try to hide what's happening. Like, it's called Howl. There's full moon imagery all over the place. There's wolves howling you're getting wolf POV. And the second that he gets attacked, and blood, I love this, blood splashes up on the window right behind the business lady, and she just doesn't even notice. There is lots of blood and gore. We'll have to talk about that specifically. But then they're stuck there, and do they figure out that there are werewolves? How do they figure it out? Do they see it?
Well,
is it when it gets Nina?
They all get frustrated because they really, really, really want to get off the train. And he's not allowed to let them off the train. He's not, that's not protocol.
Well, the station can't be more than, 2 miles walk? 3 max? And we might even get a phone signal before then.
I'm in? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wait, no. You can't, you don't... Because safety protocol clearly states that passengers must stay on the train and await assistance. Those are the rules, madam. I can't let you... It's not ridiculous, those are the rules. I'll lose my job. Sir, you can't get out of there without any keys.
But anyway, because he's kind of a wiener, they coerce him and convince him to use his key to unlock that's the key, is he's got the keys to be able to open and close the doors to the train. And so he's like, fine, we'll get off and we'll walk because we're not that far from a mile or two from the next stop. So he gets out, he helps them all out, and he leads them down. And as they're walking along, suddenly there's some screaming and a howl, and he heading a little bit forward through the woods. It's kind of interesting that they don't follow the train tracks. I mean, they do, but they're kind of walking through the woods parallel to it. That was a little strange.
Yeah.
But anyway, he comes across half of a body. He can see the half-eaten corpse of his the driver, and he's like stops and turns around and says, we need to go back. And just at that moment, something starts coming after them that I guess they can see because they're all panicked and they're running and running and running. And so they run back and get almost everybody on the train, but just at the last minute as they're pulling in the older woman, somebody shuts the doors and they shut on her leg, and so her leg is stuck. And as it's stuck out there, a werewolf has grabbed her leg and is pulling her up and down through the door. So they can see, this is terrible. They don't initially think it's a werewolf because by the time they pull her in and they see her leg has a giant bite taken out of it, and with the violence that she was thrown up and down before they could pull her in, I think she says like a bear or something like that. She thinks it's bears. I don't know.
I think she said that it was more like a man. Like, she's insistent. She's like, it wasn't an animal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea is because she was the last one in, she was able to catch a glimpse of it. I didn't think anybody saw, but I guess she must have.
So that scene... See, I feel like there are really good things about this movie. Like, that scene was crazy. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, that doorway is probably 6-7 feet high, and she's just being flung up and down, and they finally pull her in, and then she's got this disgusting wound that evolves throughout the course of the movie and just gets progressively more and more disgusting.
It's super gross.
The director of this movie is an effects guy. Did you say that he did the effects on this too?
I think he did, yeah.
Well, they're really good.
Yeah.
But it also, that what we were just talking about leads to a discussion, because we see when the driver gets killed, we have a view from underneath the train and we see werewolf legs. Like, that's just what they are. It's no mystery. And I guess the legs were mostly or entirely CGI, but everything else was guys in suits. I don't mind guys in suits when they look good, and I thought these suits looked good.
They did.
They were interesting. They were interesting in that, and I noticed this, of course, but I read it too. I think it was intentional. They were less wolf than most werewolf imagery that we see.
Yeah.
It's more of a man-wolf hybrid with more leaning towards the man than usual. I mean, still very beast-like and big and strong and hairy.
Yeah.
Not as hairy as sometimes, but I don't know. I just thought it was a really unique design. Not entirely. They still look like werewolves. They just don't look like the traditional werewolf, maybe, I guess.
Well, I'd say, yeah, what they're lacking in the face anyway seems to be that maw. They don't have that elongated face that looks like a wolf or a dog.
Snout.
There's the ears and there's the hair.
Teeth.
But when they open up their mouths, it's just like a bunch of teeth. It's not even, like canines. So in a way, it reminded me almost from the waist up like an orc, like a hairy orc.
Kind of.
Which I was totally cool with. And then, waist down, it was wolf. But then when they're outside kind of running and prowling around, they're not on all fours. They're the ones standing up and stuff. Yeah, I bought that these were werewolves. Who knows what a werewolf looks like. It was okay. And I liked the fact that it was a little unique. And I really was impressed with, they're very judicious, really, in showing you their faces and things. They don't hold back at moments. But even when the werewolf ends up on the train and is attacking them, a lot of it happens in very quick cuts. You don't get a whole long, full-on, look at their face much. But when you do, it's impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially towards the end, because towards the end, it starts to become dawn, and you do get some close-ups on all of them. And what I was impressed by was that they're distinctive.
Yeah.
They have distinct looks, like as people do, like they don't just all look the same. They've got, for lack of a better word, character. And there are ones that clearly seem more female and then ones that seem male.
Yeah.
The one that they kill on the train is huge. I think he was probably the alpha. I think that's what we're led to believe.
Yeah.
One of the werewolves, when they think there's only one, before they know there are more, before we know there are more, the old lady gets bit, and then the annoying girl that gets ripped out the window next?
I think that's when they realize it's a werewolf, because they get enough of a look at him when he reaches in and grabs her and pulls her out, that somebody says for the first time, I think they're werewolves. Am I wrong about that?
I don't know. I am totally lost on where we are. I do know that the werewolf rams the train, and so they know there's something big out there. And then there's a scene where it drags its claws along the car.
Yes. That was so corny. It's like Freddy Krueger
I know.
dragging his claws menacingly along, except this werewolf's really doing it for nobody, but I guess his own pleasure.
For us, I guess. I don't know. There's intrigue about how the train... Somehow, there are lots of things that I couldn't put together. Somehow this young kid had just come from engineering camp or something. And so he knew what was wrong with the train, and he knew how
that
he
was
could
so
fix
silly.
It. Gosh,
It's funny because he did, but he didn't really do much about it until the end. I felt like there's a moment. These are the bones I have to pick. First of all, I'm with you. I believed these characters. I really believed these characters. I felt like they were real people, even though, like I said, they were tropey and kind of stock. They came across as realistic. That was fine. But there's this moment, where everybody's just arguing and with each other, and the wife's been bit, and maybe the girl's been taken out. Our schlubby Joe, he doesn't ever really take control of the situation, but the older guy just yells.
Got to do something!
Too easy for it again.
What are we going to do? Stop listening to this little prick for starters.
He's doing his best.
Shouldn't even be on this train. Enough! Do you all want to die tonight? Because if you do, you just carry on whinging and arguing, and soon enough, that thing out there, he'll take care of it for you. But if you still intend to get home, then start acting like it. It's an animal. Animals hunt what's easy to catch. And look at us. We're sitting ducks here.
And I thought, okay, cool. Older guy shocks everyone to reality and makes them realize they need to do something. Sadly, schlubby guy, this was his opportunity to do that, and he didn't, because he's supposed to ostensibly be the leader. I thought, okay, fine. He's not ready yet for that. The old guy's providing an example. And that, I believe, is the moment where the douchey guy says, have you got any tools? Because we need to barricade this up. And so they start pulling all the pieces out, and they pull out the tools, and they start barricading the windows with random bits of sheet metal and screws, I guess, that they find everywhere. I don't know where they get this stuff from. It's weird, but again, it's the zombie thing. It is. Get all the boards Every house has a huge stack of boards in the basement that you can, nails and hammers that you can immediately use to barricade the doors. I thought it was a little silly. But here's the deal, like, so that guy, takes control, and then he's got a back seat for the rest of the movie. Like, we don't really hear much or see much of this old guy doing anything except sit there.
He's just tending to his wife, who is obviously turning into a werewolf.
And the douchey guy says that. He says, what werewolves are all about, she's gonna turn, and she is obviously getting much and much worse. An old guy who seemed so smart is just like, no, we just gotta get her to the hospital. Like, she's barfing up black bile, and her teeth are shooting out of her mouth. Like, she is not going to be okay. And he's no help. And they all just sort of kind of ignore it, Like, in a lot of other movies, there's a big argument here, and she gets, quarantined, maybe with or without her husband, to some other part of the train where they're going to board them in, that kind of thing. But here, they just let it go. Like, they're well aware of what's going on, and they just kind of let it go. I thought that was a little silly. The other thing was, I didn't feel like our guy was very heroic, I was expecting to see him slowly take control. Kind of like Train to Busan, where this guy who's very, very selfish eventually decides he needs to start helping to look out to other people, and then he starts getting engaged in the action. And by the end of the movie, you've seen this clear progression of circumstances and instances where he's been tested, and he's eventually, done it. I felt like our guy was still just kind of going with the flow most of the time.
Until the end.
Yeah.
Until the end, when he had to stand up against the douchey guy. Yeah, you're right. One of my favorite scenes, okay, so that teenage girl gets sucked out the window. Not sucked out. The werewolf bursts in and grabs her and tears her out. And that's when they barricade everything up. But eventually, they hear noise in the train, and they're like, oh my god, what is it? And I guess, to be fair, Joe is the only one who's going to go and investigate, and they kind of barricade it up behind him after he goes out. And it turns out it's this fat slob that we met in the introduction when we were meeting, but we assumed he was gone. I knew it was going to be him.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way they introduced that guy for no reason.
And then, of course, he's the guy who's got to go to the toilet a lot. I mean,
and I feel like there are two. Like, he comes out of the toilet, but it doesn't matter, because then he just goes back in, and they realize that he's missing, and Joe goes to get him, and a werewolf busts in through the top of the toilet and kills the fat guy in the toilet. But now it's on the train, and they barely get Joe back into the safe car, and I don't know, I think they're planning on getting out and running again, because they think there's only one at this point, but they don't get out. I think, correct me if I'm misremembering this, but this big werewolf gets in the car with them.
Yep.
And there's a big fight. And I loved this scene.
Yeah.
Because it seems like you seldom see this. It seems like in horror movies, there's, a big monster and it just rips through the train and kills everybody. I would think that this is potentially more realistic. Like, if these people all fought back, he's a pretty big monster, but there's 6 or 7 of them, and they've got, like, weapons and stuff.
Yeah.
And they do. They fight it, and it's brutal, and it's not as though they go undamaged. One of the women, I think the main girl, I don't know, one of them gets really beat up. But ultimately, I think it's Matthew gets it with an axe, like in the chest, like a bunch of times. I mean, there's tons of stabbing, and all of this is practical effects. So you're seeing stuff up close, and it's blood splattering, and
it's good,
gushy sounds. There is so much like ADR, like gloopy, like at one point they're dressing Jenny, the old lady's wolf bite wound, and it's like it's so disgusting.
It's gross. Man, when they peel the bandage back from that wound, and it's like slimy and sticking to it and all that, I was like, hats off to that guy. I mean, how many times have you peeled a bandage off and you know what it's like? And they got that just right.
So
gross.
But the effects are great, and they kill it. And I also like that they think it's dead, and then they have a little conversation. I don't remember what they're talking about, and then the wolf just sits up in the background, but they immediately see it, and somebody, I think it's Joe, what does he get, like a fire extinguisher?
It's a fire extinguisher, yeah.
And
like
bashes its head.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, here we go. And that was the moment. That was the first moment when Joe actually does something, like when he actually kind of takes control. I mean, it was a little anticlimactic for being that first moment, but I thought, oh, okay, from here on, we're going to see Joe like rising to the occasion a little bit more. And sadly, he kind of doesn't until the very end.
Well,
maybe this is the point. Since the werewolf's on the train, maybe now is when the douchey guy says she's going to turn.
Yeah, but right before the big werewolf dies, it lets out these howls, and we see that there are 3 other werewolves in the woods that hear it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about this movie going in. I mean, I knew the movie wasn't over, so we still got Jenny, the old lady, who's obviously turning into a werewolf. In fact, Adrian, the douchey business guy, wants to kill her, but the others won't let him. And eventually, at some point, they tie both of them up. I thought this was so funny. They tie Adrian up.
Oh my God.
Because he tries to attack somebody or something. I know that I'm missing plot points and I feel terrible about it, but they end up tying him up and they tie up the werewolf lady too, right next to each other. Like, yes. She is literally like leaning on him. And I'm like, you guys, she's gonna turn into a werewolf. And she's gonna just immediately eat this guy.
Yeah. Not
that I care, because he was a douchebag. God, I don't know. Yeah, so they're both strapped down, and now they think their only problem is they've got to get the train running, and Billy knows how to do it.
Right.
So he gives them a quick tutorial on how to drive a train. What? How does he know? I don't understand. And then he's going to go out to patch the wires, and Matthew is going to help. And then, God, this was one of the parts that I thought was so silly. Joe, in his role as the guard of the train, gives a motivational speech over the PA. It's like...
This is your guard speaking.
I'd like to apologise once again for the delay to your journey this evening.
A few hours ago, we were strangers. And most of you probably wish we still were. But we're going to try and get out of here now. We're going to do whatever it takes to survive. Together.
All of us.
Once again, I would like to apologize for the delay in your journey.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's pretty goofy.
And at this point, are they leaning into the comedy?
The humor?
I don't know. But Billy's under the train. He gets the line patched up, but Matthew hears,
oh my God,
from the woods, help me.
No, did he hear? Is that what initially sent him out of the woods? I thought the help me wasn't coming till he was in the woods.
No, he heard it from the train, and it distracted him, and he started walking away.
Dumbass.
Meanwhile, Billy's like, bro, I need the light. Yeah, I know. And why is he walking out there? And I was really confused at first, because I was like, can werewolves do that? Like, can they imitate young girls' voices? Like, can they go back to their human form to like lure people in and then wolf out on them? As it turns out, like, he walks out there and he's got a flashlight and he realizes that the voice is coming from above. So he pans his flashlight and the camera follows it up the tree where he sees the girl, Nina, being eaten by the other werewolves up in the tree. I had forgotten Nina existed. It took me a second to be like, oh yeah, that girl. Okay, I get it.
What's crazy about it, I mean, you know what's going to happen. You've seen enough of these movies. I mean, it's almost obligatory. But I was like, you dumbass. At least stay with your friend. You were the guard. You were standing there to guard this guy, and without a conversation, without anything, he just starts wandering off into the scary woods where the werewolves are. This didn't make any sense to me. I don't care who's calling out to him. this guy was supposed to be smart. He was reading a book. That's how we know he's supposed to be the smart guy. And, oh, my God. So anyway, the thing about it is, it almost seemed like the werewolves were done with the train by that point. It was him being out in the woods,
Yeah.
where the werewolves are having their little powwow and eating Mina, that lures them all back.
That's true. Because they jump down and surround him. I feel like we have to mention the fact that in the nighttime, their eyes glow.
Yeah.
I feel like that could be a polarizing choice. I liked it. I thought it was
sinister.
Yeah.
Also, it's like animals are like that, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
Their eyes, they don't like literally glow, but they're reflective, and so they look like
Right.
they're glowing. I was down with that. I liked it.
And when they all jump down and are surrounding him, and then, you see them all converge on him, I just thought it looked good. I thought that this was a scary werewolf movie. Like, I feel like if I had seen this when I was a kid,
Oh, yeah.
I would have thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
But you're right. But then, so I guess now that they, I don't know, have been reminded that there are other people, they come. What's his name? Billy gets the train fixed, and they actually get it going.
Yep.
But the werewolves show up, like, right at that moment.
And Billy's caught because he can't get out of the train because the werewolves are there. And as soon as Joe sees the fuel line thing come on, because what he did was he had to patch the fuel line. I don't get the logic of this. I was watching this with my dad, and I turned and I looked at him, and I'm like, so when the fuel is out and it's because it's like leaking or something, does that mean
Electricity
you
goes
can
on?
patch the line and suddenly you have fuel again? Or does it have something to do with just pressure in the line? And my dad was like, well, if it has to do with pressure in the line, just wrapping it with a few winds of duct tape is not going to help.
Right.
But in any
It's
case,
silly. I mean,
it's not going to withstand the pressure.
It's exciting in the moment that, they get it, they do get it, going, but the werewolves are there. And that part, to me, Billy underneath the train can see them. He can see their legs.
Yeah.
And we kind of are seeing from his point of view, and we see them start to crouch down to look under the train. I wasn't scared, like, I'm legitimately scared, but I thought that was a scary part. I mean, like, what is, and when then we switch to their point of view and he's not there. I mean, before they revealed in the next second that he was hanging up underneath it, I figured it out, but I was like, oh, where did he go? Like, he was just there.
Right.
And then I also thought it was scary that, he was stuck hanging on there when they started the train. Like,
yeah, they gave up on poor Billy. This is why I'm not sure Joe is such a hero by the end of the movie, because he kind of waits for Billy for a little bit, but then he just decides, well, the werewolves are here, so we need to start the train. I don't know. Like, sure, I guess. But he didn't poke his head out the window. He didn't do anything. It's just like, all right, well, here we go. Leaving that poor guy behind. But he wasn't left behind. He's under the damn train, and that's terrifying too. But I thought, if Billy can ride this out, I've heard of this happening before, where people can, clutch underneath the train and be okay in the end. I thought if Billy can ride this out, he'll be all right. But he can't, because his arms aren't strong enough. In fact, he ends up grabbing one of the fuel lines just to pull himself and just destroys it again, which stops the train again. So it's frustrating.
And another thing that I like about this movie is that there are always lots of things going on at the same time. Because while all this is happening in the passenger car, Jenny has turned into a werewolf. Like, she is full on wolfed out, the old lady.
Oh my God.
She escapes, and then there's just chaos there because she's in there and the other three werewolves are out there.
Yes.
Kate gets pushed up against a door or something, and it opens and the werewolves are right there. And I think they grab her, and she's reaching out to Adrian, help me. And instead he just kicks her out the door.
I knew that was going to happen eventually. And of course we knew that the woman was going to turn. But I've got a problem with the woman turning. I mean, not really, but come on. She is standing there. By the way, she looks freaky as heck.
And that actress did a great job.
Oh, she was fantastic. But she just stands there and snarls in place at her husband while this guy is like, honey? He just lets her, and after a while, at first it seems like, I'm thinking, oh, come on, this is so bad. She does not lunge. She does not attack. She's just like, and it just backs him slowly into the seat eventually. Nobody else does anything. She just bites the heck out of his neck. And I'm like, come on, this guy, we thought this was the smart guy because he earlier on was getting everybody telling everybody to buck up.
Yeah.
And he's such a moron. And I don't know, I get it. It happens all the time in these movies with zombies. I realize this is your loved one. I realize you don't know what this means. You want to hold out hope that maybe they're half-turned or maybe there's a cure or something like that. But I'm sorry, if I saw somebody in that state, my significant other looking at me like that, I would be doing significantly more than standing there, honey, and letting them back me into a corner. I mean, I might not take their head off, but I would do something.
You at least run.
Come on. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So she eats her husband. Joe kills her. I don't really remember. It must not have been particularly notable because I just have Joe kills Jenny. And then the wolves get on the train and Joe is trying to unlock the door so they can get out, but Adrian attacks him. I don't really remember why, but then Adrian gets off the train while the other the two rail workers, Joe and his girl, whatever, while they're preoccupied with the wolves, Adrian gets off the train, but he takes the keys with him because you can only open or close the doors with the keys. So he takes the keys so he can run off, leave the two of them back there to be food for the werewolves or whatever. It's a mean plan, but not a bad one. Joe and Ellen are there, and they're surrounded. Like, from either side, the wolves are coming from either side of the train, and they can't get out. But fortunately, Billy has made his way out from underneath the train and has secured Molotov cocktails. Okay.
Where did those come from?
Where did they come from? And Billy should not be handling open flame. He has been laying underneath a leaking fuel line for the last 20 minutes. I have watched him get saturated by gasoline for the last 20 minutes.
Yes.
But he throws Molotov cocktails at the werewolves, and it hits them and then frightens them, and Joe pries the door open somehow.
Yeah.
And he and Ellen get out, but Billy gets killed. I was sad. I thought Billy was a good kid. I wanted him to make it.
He didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
You went and get back to school.
Yeah, back to engineering school. But he died a hero, so that's great.
Yeah.
And so then Joe and Ellen run through the woods, and this is where it's very clearly day for night. But I guess it's also supposed to be nearing dawn, so that's fine, whatever.
That's what I was thinking, but yeah.
And they chase them, and then honestly, when I was watching it, didn't bother me. Now that I'm about to say it out loud, I'm like, this is so stupid. Joe stops them in the middle of the woods, and they have a good minute conversation about how they're not going to make it. And he has to urge her to continue running. I guess his idea is that he's going to stay behind to fight them or sacrifice himself to give her the opportunity to run away. I think that if they had just kept running, they would have had a pretty good shot.
Yeah.
But whatever. Anyway, so he eventually convinces her to keep running, and he stays behind, and he does put up a fight.
He gives her a big kiss.
Oh, yeah, they kiss. They have, like, the big, moment. Like, you expect the orchestra, oh, like, it's the big kiss moment. And then she runs off, and he stays behind. And he puts up a fight, but it's him against three werewolves.
He's gonna die.
They get him. And you just see what appeared to me to be the larger female wolf, like, grab him almost in an embrace, and is biting at his neck. And then the ending wraps up pretty quickly. Ellen just walks into the train station bloody and beat up and tattered and torn, and like nobody even pays attention. That's it for her.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to the woods where Adrian is trying to make his way out, and he hears the rustling in the brush that we've been hearing throughout, and he gets surrounded by the werewolves, and one of them Joe is now one of them. Like, he's still like in his suit, but he's a werewolf. He changed much more quickly than Jenny did.
He sure did.
But he has a distinct look, too. He kind of looks different from the other werewolves.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe this is me reading too much into it, but I kind of got the impression that the alpha female had turned him. They didn't kill him. They turned him, and now he's going to be the alpha male to replace the alpha male that was killed earlier in the movie.
I did not make that leap, but it makes sense. I mean, it's weird how the werewolves will eviscerate and eat some people, but then other people, like in Joe's case, I guess deliberately turned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I said it when that big female, and again, I'm making assumptions. We don't see their genitalia, but it looked like a female to me, grabbed him and bit him. It seemed more like an embrace. Like, she didn't ravage him.
It's true.
She just went in for a bite.
Oh, God, and I was getting flashbacks to all the werewolf porn novels that I voice. It's always this, they mark each other by grabbing each other and, like, taking a big bite out of their neck, kind of shoulder area. Oh, my God, as I watched that. It's funny, I didn't draw the conclusion you did, because that was the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, mate.
Too much werewolf porn for you.
Too much.
Honestly, I enjoyed it. I certainly wouldn't steer people away from it. I thought it was entertaining. I actually enjoyed it more than Wolfen. People, we've already had our Facebook friends and stuff say, "What are you talking about with dog soldiers? What are you talking about?"
We knew it would happen, too.
I know. I enjoyed this more than Dog Soldiers. It was more fun to watch for me. So I don't know. Overall, I have to confess that I enjoyed it. I don't think it's great, but I thought it was creative. The gore effects were really skillful. Maybe I just appreciate what they did with practical effects. This guy's an effects guy, but I'm sure the budget was also somewhat limiting. And I don't know. I really don't know why I'm being apologetic about it. I liked it. I'm just going to say it. I liked it.
Own your feelings, Chris. I didn't hate it. I didn't despise it. I can't say I was particularly moved by it, and that's because I feel like I've seen this movie 6, 7, 8 times before, just with zombies instead of werewolves.
Yeah, it is a zombie movie with werewolves. You're absolutely right about that.
But what kind of, criticism is that? I mean, as it comes out of my mouth, like, how many times do we watch literally like the same movie over and over again? Anytime we start dipping into 80s slashers, that's what it is. And I love them to death. And that's why I love them. I love the familiarity. I love seeing the formula play out. If somebody puts a new twist on it, then cool, that's exciting. If somebody doesn't put a twist on it, I still probably get more out of the movie or enjoyment out of it than I did out of this. So I'm not sure what my expectation was. I think just the lack of novelty here was my biggest criticism. I was looking for something that just had maybe a little twist, a little something I hadn't seen before. And the fact that there was no twist, there was nothing I really hadn't seen before here. I didn't feel like there was anything really novel about it. So it's just kind of like, it's okay. It's fine. But it didn't blow me away. I didn't hate it. But was I a little bored? I think as I just saw all the tropes play out, I was kind of checking my watch. I was like, all right, we'll wrap it up. I get it. He's going to be the hero. She's probably going to get away. They'll have a moment. It happened. It was so predictable that I wasn't anticipating anything, so I wasn't really riled up,
I get it. I feel like this is kind of a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
I actually might watch this again if somebody said, "Let's hang out. Let's watch a fun scary movie." Somebody who maybe doesn't watch a lot of scary movies, I guess that's to say doesn't have a whole lot of expectations. Like, I feel like there are little things that we didn't even talk about. There are jump scares. Like, there's in the very beginning, Joe is checking people's tickets and some old lady drops hers and he bends down to pick it up, and then it cuts to a POV shot from under the seat, and you think something's watching it, and then something jumps out at him really fast, and it's just a little Chihuahua dog, but they treat it like it's a monster. Like, that's how it's shot, and that's how it's scored.
It was cute.
And it really made me jump. And I feel like that would be something fun to watch with my niece and nephew.
Mm-hmm.
Or friends who want to dip their toe in horror and To me, it seems like a fun movie to watch. It's not a great movie. I wouldn't rave about it, but I had a good time. So it's a thumbs up for me.
Yeah, it was fun. And I mean, it's a fine movie to end our werewolf month on.
Yeah.
We'll probably do some more werewolf movies in the future. We've done some werewolf movies in the past. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see a whole werewolf playlist, and I've just conveniently put them all in one spot. So in case Werewolf Month has inspired you to seek out more werewolf films, you can see what else we've tackled. And also would love to hear some suggestions as to other werewolf movies you think we should do in the future. We'll come back to these here and there as we move on. It's funny, I don't think there are... Werewolves is another one of it's sort of like cannibal movies. Like, it's a genre that hasn't really been played out yet, I think. Like, there are millions of zombie movies. I feel like Dracula and vampires are huge. I don't feel like we have a massive back catalog of werewolf movies to choose from when we want to. Am I wrong about that?
Well, I think there are a lot. I mean, I've seen
more than I realize, huh?
Yeah, I've seen a lot that we haven't talked about.
So you don't think it's an underserved subgenre?
Well, I don't think it's as popular as some of the other genres, but I also think that, like vampires, werewolves are kind of timeless, and I don't expect them to go anywhere. I think that we'll continue to get werewolf stories and werewolf movies, because I think that, like vampires, werewolves speak to something to us about ourselves and humanity.
The beast within.
Yeah, the beast within.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for vampires. I think vampires lean more heavily into the seductive sexuality side of it, and werewolves are more kind of the carnal, violent iteration.
Yeah.
But because I think that they are commentary on human nature, I don't think our human nature is going to evolve in my lifetime to a point where we're not still interested in that. So
true. Take it from me, they're just getting sexier and sexier. So as long as they can dip their toes in the romance genre as well as vampires have, and they are going full steam ahead in that direction, they're going to be with us for a very, very long time in all kinds of iterations. Jeez.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. I'll do a mini-sode about my experiences voicing werewolf porn.
We should, and you should play clips. I want to hear this. I want to hear the steamiest. Or you could do a live reading. That would be exciting too. I might have to turn my camera off.
No, you would not want your camera on for that. 100%.
No, I wouldn't want you to see what I was doing while you were doing your live reading.
And with that, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. You can find us online just by searching Two Guys and a Chainsaw Podcast. We're everywhere that you find podcasts. Please leave us a review in one of those places. Those reviews really, really help us out. And go to our Patreon page and think about supporting our podcast, patreon.com/Chainsaw Podcast. That will get you access to our unedited phone calls, lots of mini-sodes, lots of reviews. You can get a taste of those just by going there. We put a lot of stuff up for free and little free previews. If you like what you see there, consider joining. It's only $5 a month. Also, big thanks to our sponsor this month, Manscaped. If you go to manscaped.com, use the code Chainsaw, really easy to remember, you get 20% off your order plus free shipping. It's a great deal. Craig and I have both gotten the products. We both really like them. They're real nice. So check them out, manscaped.com, code Chainsaw to get 20% off plus free shipping. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.